What's up, YouTube? Here's another quick video for you as to why I run a red dot sight. Obviously, not all my pistols have them, but most of the ones that I carry or train more intensively with are running a red dot sight. Okay, I was super anti red dot sight before I had one, before I tried one, before I understood the difference that it made in my shooting ability. Okay. I drew up some pretty crummy, quick illustrations to help me explain what it is that I'm trying to explain to you guys about running a red dot sight and why I now am a fan of red dot sights. Okay, so if you are like me, you run iron sights, you're a bad mofo with irons and you don't need no red dot sight. The point I'm trying to make is no matter how true that might be, you will outshoot yourself if you start running a red dot sight. All right, let's get right to it. I'm going to flip this camera around, show you my little crummy illustrations. And I'm no artist, so bear with me. And then I'm going to try and hold the gun up in front of the camera and show you what it looks like, with an actual pistol on a red dot sight. Here we go. All right, so first up, the white ones are going to be the rear sights, obviously, or I think that's obvious. And then the black is your front sight. Yes, they're very crooked. Like I said, I didn't bust out a ruler or even remotely take my time doing this. Here you have equal daylight on both sides of your front sight, and the tops are as even as I cared to draw them. So that in your brain, when you bring up your sights, your gun, you compute that, and as long as your sight alignment is well placed, you get a good sight picture. That's going to be a solid hit, right? Correct. All right, we all know that to be true. So now here is a similar scenario. You've got your rear sights and you have daylight on one side and your front post is hugging the left side. Now, for your brain, it's much harder to compute if that's going to be a hit or not. Obviously, this is going to depend on the distance that your target is at. Um, and we are assuming, of course, that you get a clean, straight back trigger press every time. You're not jerking the gun left or right, down, or anything like that, right? So your height is good, but obviously this shot at great distance is going to be thrown off to the left because you're holding the gun over to the left, right? We all agree on that as well. So what I'm trying to prove is here. Let me skip forward actually, and we'll go back to that. My sights look terrible, but here you have your window of your optic, your red dot, and we'll call this equal daylight on both sides of your rears and front. Okay, that's going to be a clean shot. Now, notice that the dot is above, way above your sights. That's typically what it looks like. Even if you have suppressor height sights, you'll see that on my Glock 17 here in a couple of minutes, or maybe a few seconds. I don't know. All right, so that's going to be a clean shot. So now, one of the biggest things about the red dot sight that I realize people don't know, okay, this is going to be off to the left, right? Much greater daylight on the right side than the left. So you're throwing that shot to the left. Your dot is also off center. However, if your dot is over the target that you intend to hit, no matter where on the window that dot may be, okay, so it could look as bad as this, where you're off to the left and your front sight is much higher than the rear, so you're holding the gun pointed to the left and canted up like that. If your dot is in the window and it is over your target and you have a clean trigger press, always, obviously, we're assuming that you're making a clean trigger press back. You're not going to jerk the gun, right? Say a machine is holding this thing. You got your gun in a vise. It's in a machine that'll pull the trigger perfectly straight back every time. And you line up your sights to look like this, but that dot is over your target, you're going to hit the target. So what I'm trying to get at is your brain would have a really hard time computing, especially at the speed that we're trying to shoot, right? Computing If this, without the dot, let's say you don't have a dot, you just have your sights, your irons, right? Do you know if this is going to be a hit or not? Do you know where that round is going to land? It's professional shooters can probably do that, although most of them now shoot carry optics division. Of course, they shoot other divisions, but that is the most popular division in all competitive shooting. I'm pretty sure is carry optics, where in obviously competitive scenarios where they are allowed. Um, this is hard for you to compute on the fly while you're bang, 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 bang pressing the trigger. Is that going to be a solid hit? But when you introduce a red dot sight, as long as you see your dot and you put it on the target, even if it's up at the top of the screen, right, of your optic window, that's going to be a hit. That's a huge advantage over the guy that's trying to compute if this is going to be a hit or not. You know it's going to be a hit. Okay? So that made the biggest difference. Now, I'm going to try and show you with this pistol. Again, bear with me. This is not going to be easy for me to do, but I'm going to try it. All right? And here I have an AR with an aim point red dot on it. That is exactly the same. If you've been running a red dot on a rifle for years but refuse to put it on a pistol, it's the same concept as your rifle. As long as you don't sit with your rifle and try and center that dot every time, it has to be perfectly center of the circle window. It doesn't. As long as the dot is over the target, you're going to hit the target. And that's what you're going to achieve by running an optic on a handgun. Staccato P 2011. All right. Iron sights only. I use this for competing when I'm not running the Glock or the M&P. Okay. You can see, obviously, everybody is alive and shaking, right? So that's what my sight picture looks like. This is not easy to do. But anyhow, that's what my sight picture looks like. All right. So at one point or another, I'm off center. That gun is moving around, and it's hard for me to tell, hey, I'm going to make this shot, or hey, I'm not going to make this shot, right? Now, with this, even though it's going to be, well, I can't even find the gun in the screen. Okay. Let's say I'm aiming at that switch, right? Right there, look at my sights. Look at my irons. They're way out, right? But that's where I'm going to hit. Wherever that dot is, that's where I'm going to hit. So I'm going to aim. I'm going to swap over to this little USB plug so you can see that even though my sights are all over the place, for the most part, those were going to be solid hits, and your optic tells you that. So the other point I was trying to make is that if you have it like this and that dot is way off on the side of the screen, look at the irons. Can your brain compute that that's where the bullet's going to go without that dot there to assist you? It's very, very complicated, very hard. That is like grandmaster pro level shooter that knows that with your irons out that far, you're still going to make a hit. Look at that. Look at those iron sights. Now, if I try and line up my irons, okay, so you can see the dot will go where you're trying to put it. And that's where the round is going to impact. And follow the iron sight simultaneously, and you see all kinds of crazy sight pictures that you wouldn't think, man, that's going to make that hit. Anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you today. I just wanted to go over the fact that mostly what I was trying to get across is that your dot does not have to be center of the window for you to hit where the dot is. All right. So a lot of people they'll take their time, even when they, not newer shooters, but shooters that are new to running an optic will put an optic on. A lot of times I'll tell them, listen, don't put your height, don't put suppressor height, don't put sights that you can see on the pistol just yet. Learn how to run the dot first. Then you can throw some on there as backup, because I see a lot of guys, they're shooting and they're a little slow, they're slow, their follow-up shots are slow. And I'm like, man, you really ought to ramp up the speed, and they're like, well, I'm still trying to line up my sights. And I'm like, well, you have a dot on your gun now. Like, you don't have to line up your sights. Just put the dot over the target, right? So a lot of people, even with a dot, they'll be trying to co-witness on purpose. They're trying to co-witness instead of ignoring the sights entirely and just going for that optic. And of course, there's a learning curve to everything, guys. So if you do decide to run a dot, rent a pistol with a dot on it at the local range, whatever you decide to do, don't get frustrated because you're punching out and you can't find your dot at first. All right? It's bound to happen. Just like you used to punch out and you couldn't find your front sight because you were holding the gun crooked. It's all a matter of building that muscle memory, right? And as always, you point your thumbs at the target. That's a huge help. You point your thumbs at the target, chances are your dot's going to be there, your sights are going to be there, you're going to be on target. That's always been, since I learned it, a good piece of advice that I've given to newer shooters than myself. Anyhow, that's all I had for you guys. So if you're all about the iron sights and you don't need it, I mean, you might not, but give it a shot. You might be surprised at what you find. You're definitely going to like it. You're definitely going to like it. I mean, I find myself shooting. I have the 2011. I have some other, nicer pistols, and I'm constantly running my plastic guns that have optics on them because not only is it more fun, I'm faster. Actually, before I let you guys go, I got one more quick advantage to running a red dot sight. If you've been shooting for a while, you've absolutely heard focus your front sight. Focus your front sight, right? So your rear sight's going to be a little blurry, your target's going to be a little blurry, and that's okay when you're doing some 5-yard distance bill drill where you're just punching out and boom 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 going to work, right? But when you're trying to make A zone hits, a headshot A zone, because that's what the course of fire is calling for, and you're trying to get that nice, you have to slow down, obviously, try and make this shot. When you're swapping from target to target and you're focusing the front sight, it's much harder. It takes much longer without that optic. With the optic, you're focusing on your targets the entire time because the optic stands out, right? So if you've ever driven a car that has like a heads-up display that shows it on the windshield, it's the same concept. Like you don't even have to, you see it. You can see the RPM gauge on your windshield while you're driving. You don't have to focus on it because you see it. It's in the way, right? So it's the same concept. Now you're focusing your targets. So swapping from, let's say, this target, but the other one is like 35 degrees over here. You're swinging this gun and you're not staring at your front sight. You're looking at your target, right? Boom, and you're putting your dot right over it because you're not going to lose that bright red, bright green reticle that's glowing in your face. Okay, so I think with that, I'm about done ranting about this topic, but I hope it helped someone out. If you were on the fence about getting an optic, I would say just go get one, but try it. Just rent a pistol, borrow a pistol, ask a buddy, hey man, can I put some rounds through your gun with the RMR on it? This is a Holosun 508T, and I recommend these things. I was a big hater when it came to optics and Chinese made stuff. I mean, I still am. That being said, there's a Streamlight on this and a Holosun, but they work, man. They just work. So whatever, give them a try. You don't have to spend upwards of $500 on an optic. They make some Holosuns that are $165, I think, and it won't have the big EOTech looking reticle. It's just a dot, but hey, I threw one of those on a dagger just to lend people when they want to try an optic. Here, try this out. And always positive feedback. Every time someone shoots one of my guns with an optic on it, they're like, man, I really got to get on that. It's like, dude, I'm telling you, do it. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you for watching. And as always, stay safe out there.